Hi, I'm Nat from We Learn to Share, and this is Lesson 1 of Pre-IB Bio. We'll be going through the cardiovascular system. This is a brief course overview of the Pre-IB Bio course. In the first lesson, we'll be going over the cardiovascular system. We'll learn about the composition of blood, the heart, major arteries, and veins. In the second lesson, we'll be going over the respiratory system. We'll zoom in on the lungs and the significance of each part, and we'll also make connections to the cardiovascular system. In the third lesson, we'll be learning about the digestive system. We'll have sample experiments, we'll learn about major organs, and we will connect it to the respiratory system and cardiovascular system. In lesson 4, we'll be learning about genetics. We'll learn about Punnett grids, mitosis, meiosis, and genetic variations. So let's get started. First off, what does blood do? Blood regulates our body temperature. Blood also regulates our pH balance. And blood also transports hormones, transports oxygen, and transports nutrients throughout the body. Blood can also clot and fight infection. The composites of blood that help blood do this are red blood cells, which carry oxygen in a protein called hemoglobin, white blood cells, which help fight off infections, plasma, which is the liquid component of blood, and platelets, which help the blood clot. Let's move on to the heart's chambers. Now, there's the left atrium, which is anatomical left, which means that if you are standing facing another person, then your right side is their left side. So anatomically, the left atrium is on the top chamber of their left side. And the left ventricle is also on their anatomical left, but it is the bottom chamber. The right atrium is their anatomical right, and it is the top chamber. The right ventricle is their anatomical right, and it is the bottom chamber. Now let's move on to the types of blood vessels. There are 3 main types of blood vessels. There are arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries go from the heart and push blood out to the body. Therefore, they must have a thick outer wall, along with a layer of muscles and elastic fiber that help to maintain blood pressure and also to support the structural integrity of the arteries to ensure that blood doesn't leak out. And all of these blood vessels have lumens, which is where the tube that the blood actually flows through. The arteries have a thick lumens in order to support the high pressure. Veins carry blood back from the body to the heart, and therefore they have a thin layer of muscle and elastic fiber because the blood doesn't have a high pressure. And veins also have valves, which prevent the backflow of blood. Capillaries have the smallest lumen, which means the smallest tube that blood can pass through, and blood cells can pass through in a single file. Blood travels slowly and at a low pressure, and capillaries are everywhere. If you prick your finger accidentally, you have burst a capillary. And they spread out throughout the whole body to promote gas exchange and nutrient exchange and hormone exchange as well. Valves, what do you need to know? You may have noticed that I mentioned that there are valves in veins. Valves are made from connective tissue that extend from the walls of the heart. Yes, your heart has valves as well. It prevents the backflow of blood, and there are 4 valves present in the heart. Valves are also present in the vein, but not the arteries, because of the high blood pressure in the arteries. And here are the major arteries and veins. There is the superior and inferior vena cava, which carry blood from the body to the heart, and therefore it is a vein. The superior vena cava is on top, which means that it leads to your right atrium, and your inferior vena cava leads to your right ventricle. Next up is the pulmonary artery and the pulmonary vein. The pulmonary artery is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood, and the pulmonary vein is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood. These veins and arteries lead from the heart to the lungs and then back again as a part of a closed circuit. The pulmonary artery transports deoxygenated blood into the lungs for gas exchange. And the pulmonary veins transports oxygenated blood from the lungs into the left ventricle. The aorta is the artery that carries oxygenated blood out of the heart. The aorta then diverges to the main arteries in the upper and lower body. The aorta takes the oxygenated blood from the left ventricle. Here is a diagram of the heart in case you couldn't follow along or if I was going too fast. You are more than welcome to rewatch that part of the video. And here is a diagram. Again, the left atrium, this is anatomical left, and left ventricle. Here you can see a representation of the valves in order to prevent the backflow of blood. So follow my mouse, and this is the path that blood would take. Let's say we're going from the inferior vena cava, we would go up to the right atrium, down to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, we would go to the pulmonary artery, and we are still deoxygenated blood. From the pulmonary artery, we can split off into two ways and go into each side of the lungs. Once we go into the lungs, we come back through the pulmonary vein as oxygenated blood. We then go into the left atrium, down into the left ventricle, and then up into the aorta, which then splits off up here and also comes down here in order to go to our lower body. Now, here are some recommendations in order to help you understand. First off is a show on Netflix called Cells at Work. The first couple episodes explains blood composition quite well. And the second resource is my personal notes from when I was taking the pre-IB bio class. The third is a Quizlet set, which may help you memorize and learn the subject better. And here's a little more information for you. Some of you may have heard the words heart attack and cardiac arrest being used interchangeably. However, this is actually not the case. A heart attack is when blood flow is blocked. And cardiac arrest is when the heart malfunctions or when it stops beating. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and see you in my next video.